something to hold on to, gotta find it first. But here I am, 'cause I've been laying under palm trees, waiting for the summer, knowing there's nowhere to go. 'Cause I am happy on this island, wanna be my farmland. I don't ever want to leave, I'm in a tropic club.
About if Miracast holds a connection during this entire podcast?
I feel good about it.
Or do you just want to give me the money now?
Maybe I shouldn't have a trash can in the shot. Good about it. Sorry, I just moved recently and I'm still not settled.
Still getting
Maybe doing this like
acclimated.
2 years from now.
I'm trying to think, what am I missing with my
Still
life?
rooting the Brad.
Let's make sure this camera's not gonna.
I'm waiting to read comments on my video game articles about how I'm not a real gamer.
Well, no, you're not. You're just a Call of Duty-er.
It's the realest game there is.
Yes. We back? Hopefully. Yeah. No, well, it's better now than once the show starts.
You're better now than once the show.
We're all good now? Just trying to make sure the... All right. Live stream didn't change, so we're good.
New partnership between Microsoft and Fruit of the Loom.
What did you say about Fruit of the Loom?
They're partnering with Microsoft. Hopefully on AI underwear or something.
There's a lot of really bad jokes right there that I'm really avoiding.
Yeah.
Here, give me 1 second because I don't know if I'm all set on this end. Make sure this is all broken because why would I want this to work? Well, I'm putting a lot of faith in Miracast, and this is going to be hold on to your hard hats. So, you ready, Paul?
Yes, sir.
Your confidence is overwhelming. Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Ring Daily. I'm Brad, he's Paul, and we are here. And before we kick the show off today, I want to give a shout out to Smart Deploy. They are actually sponsoring the show today. So today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy. Manage your Windows computers a little bit easier. And so we'll talk more about them here and how this is all going to play out in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I've installed iOS 11 on my phone now.
I'm sorry.
No, there's actually been a lot more issues than I thought. But you know, I like to browse app stores. Just whatever reason, I do it on Android. I do it on the Windows Store every once in a while. And I have to say that what Apple has done to their app store is should be considered a war crime, I think, at this point.
I agree. I think the way they separated out the toolbar a little bit, like with an apps segment and then a game segment, is good. But there's this thing that gets in the way of those things. And I think this is the complaint that you have.
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? Let's look at this stupid thing.
It's like a daily feed of app vomit.
It's probably like the Today view or some stupid thing like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Today.
Yep. And you'll never be able to see it here. But so when you open the App Store and you see this, all you see is one app or a giant ad. I'm guessing that somebody pays for these or something. And so it's like you can just scroll down and view one app at a time until you get to these just randomly pocketed groups of apps.
So to be fair to Apple, which I love to do, see if I can bring it up here. It's the layout of this is actually far more attractive on an iPad than it is on an iPhone. So for example, you can probably just barely see it. This is an iPad mini, but you can actually see 4 of those tiles at once. Now on your phone, You just see kind of the one.
Yep. Yep. I don't know. Among the many issues that I've run into with iOS 11, such as trying to open the camera and it just doing this black little spinny thing, because that's the best way to capture an image is not to do it, or apps just crashing, Safari being a little unstable, and the other vices of graphical user issues where the screen just quite literally flickers. I was hoping the App Store was going to be a nice retreat from whatever. Whatever.
I'm not gonna write this up this way, but it's interesting to me that in iOS 11 there are a number of features that sound good on the surface and are in fact annoying, right? So, for example, I can list a few off the top of my head. The thing that you're talking about, they redid the store. You know, you think, okay, this is going to be great, and it's like this thing's just in the way. It's stupid. Okay, Safari supports the ability to open in its reader mode every single time you hit an article. That sounds wonderful, right? No ads, whatever. The problem is it turns web pages that are not articles into reader view, rendering them unreadable, and you have to go and get out of that. It's only one tap, I know that, but I find myself actually missing the normal web view a lot, right? So that's kind of weird. They have that do not disturb while driving feature, which sounds wonderful. But if you don't connect your phone to Bluetooth and it doesn't know you're in the car, it will just sense you moving and it will turn on. And all of a sudden, you're not getting any notifications. There's probably a few others, but those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. It's weird, how that works.
Yeah. Yep. And so I would be okay if when you got off of that Today panel, like I go to apps, like I'm always, I'm always looking for like better calendars or whatever, because why keep life simple? But when you go to the apps page, it's all you see on the homepage view or whatever is 2 apps. And then you have to start scrolling, and it's like, guys, this reminds me of...
You see one app and about 1/8 of an app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It reminds me of these like really fluid and modern web designs that have parallax effects, and everyone thought they were going to be the greatest thing ever. And then we all got to the point where we said, you know what, it's really annoying to try to use a web page like this for more than about 8-9 seconds. And that's where I'm at with the App Store. So.
I think they're going to come to understand that this design doesn't work well on the phone, and that what they really need to do, if you look at one of those tiles, is make the tile a little bit less than half the size of that. And then you could see 3 of them on the screen at one time, and that would be great. The other thing it doesn't do, which is kind of odd, is the App Store doesn't support landscape mode, unless I'm missing something. And that would be another way to, if you wanted to see more, but it doesn't support it. So.
Anyways,
it just works.
They took a page out of the new Skype book, which is less content density is better, which I think we all kind of agreed that's not really the case. So
I thought the Skype book was let's enrage our users.
It's a great way to enrage users, Paul, with Skype. Redesign it again.
Redesign it, as I called it.
Yeah.
Well, they need to fix it, right? So I appreciate that they're responding to feedback. One might argue maybe you could have looked at that before you shipped the damn thing, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too, so I've looked at the new updated design, which actually put me on another tangent of I wish Microsoft had a dashboard of all the insider programs there are, or at least all the ones that I'm currently enrolled in, because I honestly have no idea if I'm going to get this new app or not, because I can't keep track of these things. But for whatever reason, and maybe our usage of Skype isn't the best like baseline testing, but so the bottom center of the app during conversation or on the main view page, based on what they've shown us, is going to be a camera button rather than like the contacts or like your contact list. And I don't, like, maybe I'm indifferent, but I don't snap a lot of photos to send on Skype. I don't know. Yep.
I don't Skype on mobile. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. Anyways, speaking of negative things, Paul, because we haven't dove down deep enough before we get to the fun stuff later. Google pulled its YouTube app from the Echo. I actually just read this headline about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, Amazon issued this statement that claimed that Google kind of did this with no warning and that it wasn't very nice and blah, blah, blah. And then Google was like, we've been warning you that you were breaking our terms of service for a month. We didn't hurt your users. You did, so it's kind of a weird little he said, she said kind of thing. But yeah, as of right now, it seems like Amazon could do something to make YouTube appear on the device again, but it's not clear what they've done wrong.
Is this for all of their devices? Because I'm looking at my Echo and I'm like, how the heck would I ever watch YouTube on there?
The Echo Show, I think it's called, is the first one that has the screen on it. So it's you could watch YouTube videos on it. Now you can't. So right now there's only one Echo device that supports a screen, but I guess whatever that other one is called that's coming this fall will also support a screen.
You all right over there, Paul? You seem a little. You feel? Actually, I should ask more bluntly. Are you feeling better? You had a pretty rough couple hours.
Yeah, so I've actually been sick for like 2 weeks, right? Which I haven't gotten sick for that long in a long time. I ended up canceling I had a business trip coming up on Monday, and I've canceled it. I actually do feel fine, although I listen to myself speak and I don't sound great. But I do feel better. I just think it's I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I can't even explain how I got sick. I just think the stress from moving, which I try not to talk about too much, but I did move recently, Brad. And
I didn't even know you moved, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I try not to be too much on that stuff. But I did. Yeah, I did move recently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, Paul, and I think we both know the answer to this, but do you know why Microsoft is now shoving an Edge icon onto the desktop with the latest insider builds, like on the desktop, not like on the taskbar, but on the desktop?
Yeah. No, I'm curious why you think they are. I saw the note about that, and it didn't occur to me that this might be like a policy thing, like they're doing it on purpose. But why do you think they're?
Oh, I honestly think it's to get more usage. That's the only reason I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought, actually, no, I've experienced this. So some months ago, I did an update to an insider build, and I actually got the Edge icon on my desktop as part of the update. I took a picture of it. In fact, I'm sure I tweeted it at the time. I was like, that's kind of odd, like why are they doing that? And then it kind of went away. So I'm kind of wondering if they're not just seeing what people think about it and if it's okay. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how much harder they could push this thing. It's funny, coincidentally, because they also announced something today about extensions, and there's no like hard news there. But since extensions debuted in Edge a little over a year ago in the anniversary update, there are now over 70 extensions in the store. And actually, that's pretty good. And so when I evaluated Edge as part of the Fall Creators Update, I kind of went through the list of problems I've had with it in the past. And extensions was one of those things I felt like they had crossed the line where it's probably quite acceptable for most people. But, I got to say, just in using it over the past couple of days, I posted my past several articles using Edge instead of Chrome like I normally do. I've been using it for email and calendar and news stuff and everything. And, I love the look of it, but I still find it to be like performance challenged, and I know they've improved the performance a lot. I know they have, but just the simple workflow stuff that I do, like something like pulling an image from my desktop onto the browser window to put it into an article. If you don't do it just right in Edge, it won't work. And in Chrome, it's like the most seamless. It just, it flies along. It's really nice. You really have to kind of hold it there because it needs to catch up with the fact that you're trying to drop that thing on there. Like it actually is that slow. And I think I just feel like they need to hit the fundamentals and stop trying to, twist people's arm. If this thing is good, people may come to it. But if you're pushing something that's still kind of lousy, like I just don't feel like that's a good strategy.
And then one other quick thing here before we jump to the middle section. Google's got a Pixel event this week. Any last minute anything?
Right. Actually, what day is that? Is that Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's the 4th. So It's Wednesday.
Wednesday. That's bad timing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be my next phone. We'll see. The rumors are kind of all over the place. Like a lot of it had leaked a couple of weeks ago, and I posted about that. The two phones, all the other devices. There's going to be like a mini version of the Google Home, a sort of new version of the Daydream thing, and some other stuff. But this is going to be my Waterloo moment. I don't know what's going on here. Like, I haven't written about this yet. You may recall I am switching to Android, which I have written about. I would have made the switch already had I gotten a SIM from Project Fi to put in there. I already have one, but I needed a new one. I can't just use the same one. And that actually arrived yesterday. So if I had been traveling next week, because it would have been international travel, there was no way I was going to swap that SIM out. I could never risk this, right? But because I'm now not leaving, I said, screw it, I'll swap the SIM. And it worked. It activated. It ported my number over. Phone calls could happen immediately. I'm thinking, great. Now I can write this article I intended to write 2 weeks ago, but except for one thing, I can't send text messages. No, I'm sorry. I can send text messages. I can't receive text messages. Now, there's a lot of theories about why that might be. My previous phone was an iPhone, so there's some kind of an iMessage lock-in thing, remember? I had to go and deregister my account for iMessage. I did that. Google says it could take up to 24 hours, even 48 hours for all the functionality to come through. So it's possible that text messaging will eventually work. But here's what's really goofy about it. I was troubleshooting this, and I switched over to Google Inbox, which I use as a web app on Windows 10. And there's a Hangout window inside of the browser window there with the text message. So my text messages, I can get them on my Windows computer through Hangouts or whatever it's called. This kind of sort of text messaging app on Android that's going away. So then I thought, well, wait a minute, I must have Hangouts on the phone. I never use it. And I do. And yes, sure enough, even though I send text messages through the default SMS app, which is Messages, I only can receive them through Hangouts. So now you're thinking there must be some control in there where I can say, please do not use Hangouts. It's never done this before. I have no idea why it's doing it now. That doesn't exist. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next phone because that's going to solve all of my problems. I just don't even. So I guess if it doesn't work and if Google's support thing can't help me, I'm going to try resetting the phone. But here's the question. When none of that works, because admit it, you're secretly thinking none of that's going to work. Now what? Thinking
or kind of just sitting here chuckling on the inside thinking, well, you had it working just fine and you screwed it all up. So I think hoping is a better word.
You, as someone who keeps, sticking a spoke or like a wrench into the spokes to, mess up a perfectly working system, will appreciate the fact that I now have one app on which I can send text messages and one on which I can receive them. Yep.
If I was a programmer, I would call that a suboptimal experience.
Yes. Anyway, looking forward to the new one.
Because that's going to do it. That is going to be your magic key, Paul. Actually, I'm hoping when you get that phone that calls, when you get called, it answers in one place, and then when you dial out, it has to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, thank you. You can only make calls over VoIP, but you can make them. You can receive them on a normal phone.
So, as we alluded to earlier, folks, Smart Deploy now giving us a little bit of sponsorship here, and they wanted me to pass along. It says the team over at Smart Deploy lives and breathes computer imaging. So if you're not familiar with computer imaging, I know Paul knows a lot about it. Feel free to email him. But they understand that IT professionals wear many hats, they understand that IT professionals wear many hats. So Smart Deploy streamlines that often frustrating task of computer imaging, specifically related to Windows migration, new hardware rollouts, and day-to-day, obviously, computer provisioning, allowing your major projects to be completed faster with fewer IT resources, unlike Paul, who's now having many resources to answer his text messages. Specifically, you can head on over to smartdeploy.com/Thurrott. So this is a special offer to download your free trial and actually 15 free licenses. So actually, I'm really tempted by this because I can now run this and deploy all images to all my machines with 15 free licenses for 1 year of support. No credit card, no commitment, no big contract to sign. That's smartdeploy.com/Thurrott. So, Paul.
Yes, sir. Am I allowed to talk about
Cuphead.
my Smart Deploy experiences yet, or do I have to wait?
Why don't we save that for a week? We have less content.
Okay.
No, we'll eventually get to there. Xbox games, Paul. Cuphead. Have you tried it yet?
I have.
Thoughts?
It's beautiful, right? It's this really kind of approachable thing because it looks like 1930s cartoons. You know, the Steamboat Willie thing where the little guys are hopping up and down as they stand there, and it's visually it's astonishing looking. It really has that kind of old timey feel. The thing that they've made the mistake with, though, is that it's way too difficult. And the reason it's way too difficult is that this is a game that should appeal to all ages and all skill levels. And they don't, there are easier, you know, there's an easy mode and a difficult mode, I guess, but or really it's easy and normal, but they're both really difficult. And I basically run it, you know, it's like one of those Mario games. You have a little map of a world, like an overhead view, and then you jump into a door or something and it goes to the actual 2D scroller part of the game. And each of those is like a level. And I mean, I basically just run down and gone to one level and been like, nope, you died. You're like, oh, come on. You're like, well, let me try a different direction. You go up somewhere else. You're like, die. It just doesn't ever, it's just hard, you know? And honestly, the funny thing is, like, I was a big, like, Amiga gamer, you know, back in the early 90s. And back then, that stuff was all 2D scroller, 2D side scrollers. It was just kind of the big thing at the time. And I'm really used to this kind of game. It's funny how you can fall. It's like riding a bike. Like, you just go right back to it. And for that reason, what I'm reminded of are the Amiga games that were super difficult, like Shadow of the Beast being the example I used in my write-up. It was breathtakingly beautiful. The sound and the graphics, everything was so awesome. Parallax scrolling and everything. It was impossible to beat. It was impossible to get anywhere with it. But the problem is, you'd start it, you get to a certain point, you get killed. If you get killed once it's over, that was the end of it. And then you had to decide to start over, you know? And so this game's a little bit like that. You don't go all the way back to the beginning, but you go back to the beginning of the level. And so there are a lot of, like, the level I point out in the write-up is like this thing with root vegetables because it's a crazy game. And, you know, you can't beat the potato. You can't beat the potato. Oh, look, I beat the potato. Oh my God, I beat the potato. And then the onion comes and you can't beat the onion. You're like, oh, but you have to go do the potato again. And what I'm saying sounds silly because it is, but the third one is a carrot. And I still haven't gotten by the carrot. And I've tried it on basic, you know, difficulty level as well as normal. And it's hard. And it's
corner camping?
Corner camping. Yeah, you really got to master the controls. You got to have the right timing, of course. It's one of those twitchy kind of things, and I got it, man. I mean, I've played this kind of game, like, I get it, and it's just a little too much. Yeah,
I'm actually really. I played it a little bit. Obviously, the music and the artwork is absolutely fantastic, but I agree with your point on one aspect that they needed to make this game a little bit more approachable, because I think parents are going to see this and think, oh, you know what, I can get this for my teenager or whatever, because it doesn't look like Call of Duty for that.
Something you'd want to play with a little kid, you know, that an adult and a child could enjoy it as they could with the best cartoons. You know, when things are done correctly, it's something that all ages can enjoy. I don't mind it being difficult as long as there's a way for it not to be, and there really isn't. And I think that's the failing here. Don't be surprised to see them fix this over time.
The creative and artistic game that's ever made me want me to throw the controller at the screen.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been this frustrated by something like this. Yeah.
But it's good for Microsoft, though. This is another Xbox exclusive, one of the kind of the more rare ones these days that's only showing up on that platform, and it's not like a timed exclusive or a big budget title. Well, I guess it could have been a big budget title, but yeah.
It's
also,
a super inventive game. It's really neat.
Yes,
it's just really hard.
Yeah. For that matter, it really much is. Paul, did your Forza download ever finish?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. That thing that I posted was from the PC here that I'm using. I already had it on the Xbox, so I was playing it on the Xbox. But yeah, I've switched back and forth. In fact, both Cuphead and Forza 7 are play anywhere games, right? So you can play on both. In fact, and your profile comes along, and your path through the game comes along, and all that kind of stuff. That game, I can say without reservation, is unbelievable. Like, in fact, the thing that's really goofy about it is I take screenshots in the game. And of course, the reason I'm taking the screenshot is like, holy crap, look how beautiful that is. And then you take the screenshot and I go to put it in the article, and it's like, that doesn't actually look that good in the screenshot. It's hard to explain how photorealistic this thing looks. And I'm talking about 1080p on the Xbox One S today. I have it on this computer. It's QHD. It's like, I think it's like 2560 by 1440. So it's not, it's better than HD, but not quite 4K. And I did play it in 4K at the Xbox Showcase a few weeks back in New York on an Xbox One X. And so you've got this kind of, span of graphical capabilities there. But whatever, I mean, 1080p on an Xbox One S or QHD on a PC, it's gorgeous. Like, it's just gorgeous. And the sound is amazing. And of course, and it's super addictive. Like, you had made a joke, I think yesterday or the day before, about bumping into walls. And that, frankly, has been my experience in earlier Forza games and other modern racing games.
Yep.
I find these things to be frustrating for some reason. But there was something that really clicked for me early on. Like the very first race I did, well, actually, you do 3 kind of starter races. They're famous races from the past, so you can kind of learn the controls and learn the a couple of the vehicle types. It's like the first one you come in like 16th out of 20 or 16th out of 24 or whatever it was. And I think the second one I came in like 4th. And then the third one I came in 1st. And then since then, in the actual races I've been doing as part of the career mode or whatever, I've actually come in 1st so far in every race. And so, and it's really neat because it's like these multi-lap races where I get off to kind of a slow start sometimes, mostly because I'm taking screenshots and being an idiot. And then by like the second lap, I might be like in 8th place. And by the third lap, I might be in like 2nd place. And then there's been a couple of times where I've been able to get by the leader only at the very end of the game, or at least in the final lap at some point. But the graphics are amazing. The sounds, like I said, the whole presentation is great. And there's a variety of stuff going on that is not overwhelming. Like, it's actually really nice. Like the awesome car selection, the crazy, like the amount of cars are in other vehicles in this game is just astonishing. And I really like too that. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so Paul, I think you have a first-hand experience about this.
Okay.
My problem with Forza is that I don't use the brakes ever.
Yes, actually, so I have found I very rarely need to use the brakes. Now, I've not hit a child like you have.
All you got to do is just put a child in front of you.
Maybe someday in multiplayer I'll be able to do that. I have found that just getting off the pedal a little bit instead of using the brakes is usually enough, even on really tight turns. It does a pretty good job of handling the automatic controls. I'm sure you can do manual shifting and all that stuff, and I know you can add the controllers and all that. I'm not going to do that, but it rains, it gets dark, it's there are different conditions, different kinds of vehicles. It's crazy. Like, it's really, really, really well done. It's beautiful.
Well, good job, Microsoft. Actually, those games have always been pretty highly regarded. They go up against the Gran Turismo series that was really popular on PlayStation for quite a while, and I don't know if
I think I've already gotten further into this game than I ever have, though, with any previous game. Like, for some reason this time it clicked. Yeah, it's good. It's worth checking out. Check out the demo. Yeah,
no, that's what I should do.
Yeah,
that's what I should do. All right,
start downloading now because it might be Monday.
Topic du jour. Our good friend, who we ran into and have shared tots with many times in craft beer, was able to continue a little bit of the narrative about this Andromeda OS. We've been talking about this for a long time, and she got, as she does, she pulled out a little bit more information. But again, just keep in mind, everybody, we are like in the very early days. I think I wrote about something similar along these lines like 3 months ago, and some people had written things even prior to that. And she came out and got a few more things. We knew it was making Windows more compartmental, But what it's doing, according to Ms. Foley, is that it's building on top of one car. And she actually had a great analogy, is that imagine that there's a chassis for a vehicle, and what Microsoft is doing is now making the individual operating systems just components that just sit on top of that chassis. So it's more of like a plug and play type model to make Windows 10 a little bit more efficient. And that one core chassis is the baseline for all Windows versions going forward.
Yeah, so I don't have any firsthand knowledge about this aspect of it. I've heard some stuff about Andromeda, but not that. I will say this. Microsoft, back in the early 2000s, began its work to componentize Windows. And in each subsequent version of Windows, starting with Windows Vista, they've made further progress in doing that. When you look at things on the server side, like Server Core is something that came out of those efforts. And it made it easier for Microsoft to do things like Windows 10 Mobile, for example. It's something they could kind of pull out and add the stuff they needed from mobile OS. But the one thing that was always a little goofy about Windows Mobile compared to the mainstream versions of Windows is that it wasn't a true subset of any version of Windows. And so when you look at, Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 Enterprise, whatever, there is some weird mixing now thanks to Windows 10s, but for the most part, what you're seeing is sort of a superset each time as you move up the chain. So it kind of makes sense with Microsoft getting out of the phone business that they might want to recast their mobile efforts around mainstream Windows, and that a core version of that, the core part of that, which is what you're describing, could become the basis for that thing, and that we would have a true superset as we moved up the chain. It makes particular sense when you think about the move to the ARM chipset, because that's the thin, light, and highly connected platform you'd want for this new mobile thing. Mary Jo and I on Windows Weekly and talking about the presumed Microsoft device that might come out of this have referred to it as Surface Mobile, for lack of a better name. But Windows Mobile is kind of a great name for it, but Windows Core, or whatever you want to call it, works. The notion of this thing being the subset of everything else, I think this makes tons of sense.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't honestly all that surprising. We know Microsoft's been moving in that direction for, since you said Vista days. They became extremely public about it back with the launch of Windows 10. And so this is just kind of the continuation of it. One other thing she notes, and it exactly aligns to what I've been hearing, mobile is likely going to be the first place we see this show up, and it will not show up in 2017. This is expected to be in 2018 at the earliest. And the reason why they're going to go with mobile first is that's the smallest subset of devices that they can ship to that will benefit from this experience. And it's kind of like the biggest place they can take a risk with the smallest amount of downfall. So, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all we got. Somebody asked in the comment section, says, does Andromeda OS get rid of Win32 and Win64? I don't believe so. I can't imagine Microsoft trying to do a clean cut in that scenario.
Yeah, so there is probably a platform guy out there who knows this better than I ever will, but my understanding of the way that Windows is designed or is laid out, if you will, technically, is that the thing that makes Win32, or the Win32 part of Windows, can't ever actually go away. It's the basis for all of this other stuff. .NET runs on top of Win32. The Windows Store app platform, UWP, runs on top of .NET, which runs on top of Win32. Like, these things all rely on some kind of cascading level of system services. The thing that goes away is the ability to run Win32 end user executables, right? I mean, Windows 10s has Win32 in it. Of course it does. Microsoft Paint is included in there. Microsoft Paint's a Win32 app. How do you think that runs? Do you think it's like a new version of the app? I mean, that stuff never goes away. It's not like an end user thing, like when people say, "Oh, I want the control panel to go away because I want the Windows 10 settings app to be the only way to configure that stuff." That's just end user switches, right? Even if the control panel as a UI actually disappeared, you're still switching on and off these things that in many parts of the OS, in fact, in most of them, are probably technically Win32 things, if that makes sense. Like when you control the the resolution of the screen of the display. That's not a UWP thing. I mean, that's like this is a low level. I think Win32 is involved with that. It doesn't matter if the UI you're using is a cute little UWP app. I think those things still exist in the system. Now, again, I'm not like a system architect, so I hope that wasn't too overly simplified, but I believe it's broadly speaking accurate.
I'm sure anybody who has more details will feel free to correct you, and one of the appropriate.
Yeah, no, it would be nice if someone would finally have the guts to get up on the internet and correct someone else they've never met and do so anonymously. So if you could just do that this one time, that would be great.
In the chat room, actually, Paul, there might be some SMS help for you. Tyler says, Paul, you can disable Google Fi SMS from Hangouts via settings, then SMS.
I believe I have exhausted every path when it comes to this kind of thing. So the issue is this. I was using, since we're going down this path, by the way, I just got a text message that came through on Hangouts. I was using this phone before, right? I had this phone when we were in Orlando. I had a Project Fi SIM in it, and I had my Project Fi phone number on it, on my Gmail account. What I wanted to do was move this thing to my paul@thurrott.com, which is a custom domain on G Suite, which wasn't supported through Project Fi back in the beginning. As of June, it is supported. So I got the new SIM in the mail. I activated it. I didn't reset the phone. Like the phone's here. It's got all the stuff on it that was on there before. But when I put in the new SIM and rebooted, it activated on my new account. Everything works fine, like I said, except for receiving SMS. So I've not made any configuration changes in the device, but I have gone and looked at, obviously I've Googled it. I've gone to Project Fi Help. The one thing I haven't done is talk to them, because frankly, when I talked to them about the issue I was having trying to get this thing activated on the old SIM, they were beyond useless. So it was actually really disappointing. I don't want to get into an online chat with this person right on the podcast, but suffice to say, I've searched for SMS in settings. The SMS app is Messages, not Hangouts. I've sort of done this. There's like premium SMS access is another thing in settings. There are no apps that have requested this. I have no idea what's going on. Like I don't think there's a simple fix for this, other than maybe blowing this thing away, which is frankly what I'm probably going to do. I think this afternoon I'll get on support with them. I'll let them spin their wheels and not fix it, and then I'm going to reset it. And then when it doesn't work, you don't know what I'm going to do next.
Well, please live stream all of this, because we would like to
just
enjoy
for the
your
record.
frustration.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I intended to write an article about like the first step of my switch to Android is obviously closing my AT&T account, which I had for 10 years. I got it for the original iPhone. Moving it to Project Fi, and I've always had great success with Project Fi. I love this service, you know that. And this has been a freaking disaster. And it's still not fixed, as you can see.
Well, speaking of great disasters, on Fridays, we like to take a look back at some of the comments that have been posted up on the site, find some good ones, find some humorous ones, and the like. And for all of you who have watched the behind-the-scenes video where Paul laughed for, I would say, a good 2 minutes straight while I was trying to write, and when he was trying to write this quantum computing explained poorly, and he wanted to just say, this is my attempt, and then insert 10 cat gifs. Carlin High writes, he said, and a cartoon computer technician, he says, well, it looks like your computer is broken in every way possible simultaneously.
That's awesome.
That is a perfect quantum computing joke.
It's like a blue screen on this system would be every color of the rainbow at once.
Don't give them ideas. And then to Kale, on Apple dropping Bing search, he says, this was a business decision, simple as that. It's also not hard, did not hurt that Google search is the leader in the search. Early analyst reports suggest that Google is paying Apple $3 billion this year alone to be the default search.
Yeah, they are. Or I should say, yeah, they supposedly are. But let's just say that's true. What do you think Microsoft was paying them? I mean, Microsoft was paying them billions of dollars too. I think there's something bigger going on here that people are not maybe appreciating. Apple doesn't need $3 billion. Apple has more money than most countries. Dangling a couple $1 million in front of them is not enough to get Apple to do anything. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, Steve Jobs said that he was going to go thermonuclear on Google because they ripped off the iPhone, and he was going to spend every cent Apple had if that's what it took to destroy Android. That was what he pledged to do. And since then, these are Apple made Apple Maps. That's how serious they were about getting Google off of their phones. I think that this is a broader issue, it's not an issue, it's a broader change that's occurred between Apple and Google. I think this is a sign of warming relations. I think this is an understanding that this is the way the market's going to be, that Google is going to basically control 80-something% of the market, but Apple's going to have the rest of it. They're both going to have a healthy thing going on here, and they can coexist. And I think this is it took 10 years or whatever, but it's a kind of a more pragmatic relationship than maybe it had been over the years. And I think it's been getting a little bit better. So obviously Google, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this. Google search is the better search engine, period. It just is. It always will be. It's central to what Google does. And I'm sure that Apple's users want Google search on their phones, Yep. And so now that they're over their little hissy fit, Apple can make that happen. It's interesting too, by the way, that Bing image search is the one part of Bing that's left on the phone by default. And Bing image search is something that might come up. Say if you do like a Siri question, show me celebrity, show me photos of George Clooney or something. Because that's the one area where Microsoft actually does a better job than Google. So they're still there for that, So maybe this is just things returning to normal.
No, and I think you're right. To your point, they don't need the money, but at the same time, if you're inside of Apple, you can look at the marketplace. Now, when Steve Jobs made that nuclear comment, we didn't know how the market was going to shake out. I mean, Windows Mobile was still a thing, and it was actually quite popular at that time. BlackBerry was still a thing. Nokia was still a thing. And now that the market is pretty much matured, Apple has a very nice cash flow from their iPhone, tens of billions of dollars each quarter. And Google has more OS market share, but at the end of the day, Apple's, I think, making more money from their mobile than Google is. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. One question that came in from the specific Ocean in the comments says, do you believe Office 2019 will be UWP apps? I don't think so. Well, let me rephrase it. There will at least be a version of it that is not, because Windows 7 and Windows 8 users will need non-UWP versions of Office. So, Office 2019 will absolutely be this same app, the desktop apps. There's no doubt about that. There is an interesting question around the future of these respective apps, though, right? Because they can bring those apps to the store. And it seems like that might be the approach that they're going to go. It's just say, look, these are legacy apps. Doing these things over as UWP is just a lot of wasted effort. We can bring them to the UWP world by centennializing them or whatever. And that's a little bit of an about face, because remember, for a while there, it was like our new, they do that with Skype, where like the UWP version is going to be the big thing going forward. They sort of did it for a little while with the Office apps, the Office mobile apps. And I suspect what happened was they ran into technical limitations where they're like, yeah, it's just not worth doing this. So there you go. There you go. Before we wrap it up here, you got anything else today, Paul?
No. I'll probably be, I'm going to try to do some Mixer stuff. I don't know if that's today or maybe tomorrow. I don't do a lot of live broadcasting, but that's something I need to do a little bit more of. I experimented with this back. I don't know, probably whenever they first in fact, it might have still been called Beam at the time. I don't remember, but it was a while back. I'm not one of those people that kind of sits there and talks to well, actually, that's not true. I talk to myself all the time, but I don't get on a microphone and broadcast it to the internet, at least not that I know of. Yeah. And I know there's a whole thing on these channels where people with personalities talk and they have soundboards and stuff. I'm never going to be that person, but I would like to experiment a little bit with the game broadcasting stuff. So I think I'm going to try to do that over the next 24 hours or so.
You should do it with Cuphead because I'd like to watch you die over and over.
See, actually, I don't
again.
think I'm going to do it with Cuphead because it's terrible. Like, actually, that would be me talking to myself because it would just be like this not suitable for work, adult only, listen to the man scream like a child. You know, it's just, it would just be so.
Well, there we have it. I will say the Beam integration or Mixer integration into Xbox One, when I've used it, I mean, it's pretty good. It's straightforward.
Seamless, yeah.
So
it's super, you know, the latency is awesome. Like you can be on one screen on the Xbox and you can be watching your live stream in the browser on your Windows PC, and you could play off the Windows PC. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that's about
it. What about
it.
you, Brad?
What am I doing? I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. Actually, we're doing this like heart charity walk thing tomorrow. So I take that back. I do know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go hang out with some family folks, and we're going to do a little fundraiser charity thing. And then Sunday is probably going to be me screaming at the Bengals, hoping we can get our first win of the season. And probably
how far into the season do we go before you just give up? Like, what's the breaking point? 0-5. What are we looking at here?
You know, I think the better question is how much of your liver can the Bengals tolerate?
Right.
Because that's the net effect.
The whole stadium should take a knee for those guys. You know what I'm saying?
And with that, everybody. Oops. There we go. Whoa, I popped that open. And so as a reminder, today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy. Deploy one golden image to any computer model in just minutes. And with that, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you right back here on First Ring Daily next week.
Maybe I should proactively just get on Project Fi support today and try to see if they can fix this. I just know they're not going to be able to fix it. I know they're not.